In 1173, the people of Pisa broke ground on a marble tower meant to signal their city's dominance. Within 5 years, it began to lean, a 15,000-ton mistake, sinking into soft clay. The architect saw the tilt, but kept building anyway, each generation hoping to outsmart gravity while the foundation drifted further. 8 centuries later, the Leaning Tower of Pisa is history's most celebrated error, a project nobody dared abandon, and that's made it more valuable than any flawless monument. Why did Pisa's leaders risk everything by finishing a tower that threatened to collapse from the start? The answer begins with a gamble that still stands, against all logic. Bonanno Pisano stood at the heart of Pisa's cathedral square, holding a vision as bold as the city's ambition. His assignment was clear: raise a bell tower so grand it would eclipse anything in Florence or Genoa. The Opera Committee, Pisa's powerful cathedral works board, pressed for speed and spectacle. Marble arrived by the ton. Foundations were dug, just 3 meters deep, into the alluvial clay and sand beside the Arno River. In Venice or Florence, masons would have sunk the base 30 feet or more. But in Pisa, urgency and rivalry outweighed caution. No one paused to test the ground's strength. They trusted the soil would hold. Construction began in August 1173. By the time the first floor rose above the piazza, small cracks spread through the stonework. Workers noticed that the north side sat higher than the south, but the project pressed on. By 1175, as the second floor took shape, the tilt grew visible to any passer-by. At the third floor, the lean was undeniable, 5 centimeters off true, the white marble columns drifting ever further from the vertical. Chroniclers wrote that the foundation gave up under the weight. The south side sank faster, driven by the compressible clay below. Pisano and his masons tried to adjust, adding extra stone to the north, but the imbalance only deepened. Whispers of disaster spread through the city. Some builders urged caution, but the Opera Committee refused to stop. Too much money and prestige were at stake. Pisa's rivals watched for any sign of weakness. The city's leaders gambled that the ground would settle and the lean would stabilize with more weight. Orders came down: keep building. Each marble block added another layer of risk, but also another line in the story of a city determined not to lose face, no matter how crooked the outcome became. In 1178, the hammers and chisels fell silent. Pisa's wars with Genoa and Lucca drained the city's coffers, forcing a halt that would last nearly a century. The unfinished tower stood exposed to the elements, its marble shell already tilting, while the soft clay beneath continued to settle under the weight. What looked like defeat became an unlikely stroke of luck. The pause allowed the ground to compress and harden, giving the foundation a chance to stabilize, something no engineer had planned. When peace and prosperity returned in 1272, a new master builder took command. Giovanni di Simone faced a challenge no architect wanted: restart construction on a tower that leaned like a ship caught in the wind. Simone's solution was as bold as it was desperate. He ordered each new floor to be built slightly taller on the sinking south side, trying to nudge the structure back toward vertical. The result was a tower that curved, floor by floor, into a gentle arc, a marble banana rising above the piazza. Records from the Opera Committee show that money flowed again. Workers returned, and the city's pride demanded the tower rise, no matter how crooked. But war struck once more in 1284. The Battle of Meloria shattered Pisa's fleet and emptied its treasury. Construction froze again, the half-finished tower left as a monument to stubborn optimism. Decades passed. Only in the mid-14th century did work resume, this time under Tommaso di Andrea Pisano. He pressed on, capping the tower with a bell chamber and installing 7 massive bells, weighing a combined 14 tons. atop a structure that still leaned. By 1372, the project was declared complete. The tower's tilt measured about 1.6 degrees, its curve unmistakable, its fate sealed. Every attempt to fix the problem had only made the lean more visible and more famous. The story was no longer about failure, but about the city's refusal to give up, even as the ground slipped away beneath their feet. By the end of the 14th century, Pisa's bell tower stood at a slant that drew nervous glances and awed whispers. The tilt, once a hidden embarrassment, became the city's strange badge of honor. But the danger never faded. Over the next 6 centuries, the lean crept forward, slow but relentless, rising from 1.6 degrees in 1372 to a staggering 5.5 degrees by 1990. Each generation watched the shadow stretch further across the piazza, wondering how much longer the marble would hold. Scholars and travelers arrived from across Europe to marvel at the spectacle. Some, like the mathematician Galileo, found inspiration in the tower's impossible angle. Legend claims he dropped balls from the top to test gravity, though historians now call the story a myth. Still, the image stuck. Pisa's tower as a stage for science, its flaw transformed into a symbol of curiosity. Warnings echoed through the centuries. Masons and clerics argued over the wisdom of ringing the heavy bells, fearing the vibrations would send the whole structure tumbling. City officials fielded anxious reports, cracks widening, stones shifting, the south side sinking year by year. Engineers measured the deviation. By the early 20th century, the top leaned over 5 meters off-center. Yet the doors stayed open. Visitors climbed the spiral staircase, pausing to catch their breath and steady their nerves as the walls pressed in at an unnatural tilt. Tourists poured into Pisa, drawn by the promise of seeing a miracle defy gravity. Local businesses thrived on the tower's fame, even as experts predicted collapse was just a matter of time. The city faced a dilemma. Fortune and identity rested on a structure that threatened to destroy itself. By 1990, the risk was too great to ignore. The authorities closed the tower to the public, setting the stage for a final reckoning between human pride and the laws of physics. Steel barriers circled the Leaning Tower of Pisa in January 1990. For the first time in centuries, the doors were locked. Engineers and city officials gathered in the Piazza dei Miracoli, staring up at a monument that had defied gravity and logic for over 800 years. The tilt had reached 5.5 degrees. At the top, the marble bell chamber hung more than 4 meters off-center. Experts warned that one more winter of rain could bring the whole structure down. The city faced a choice: save the tower or lose its greatest treasure. UNESCO and the Italian government assembled a team of geotechnical engineers from around the world. The mission was clear but daunting: stabilize the tower, but keep its famous lean. Proposals ranged from encasing the base in concrete to straightening the tower entirely. Each idea sparked fierce debate. Tour guides and business owners feared that removing the tilt would kill the city's golden goose. Heritage advocates demanded authenticity. Engineers warned that inaction meant collapse. Work began in 1993. The team drilled deep into the piazza, threading steel cables through the tower to brace it against sudden movement. But the real breakthrough came from below. Using a process called under-excavation, workers carefully removed soil from beneath the north side, just a few buckets at a time. This allowed gravity to nudge the tower gently back, reducing the tilt by 50 centimeters over several years. The intervention cost over $30 million and required constant monitoring. At every step, sensors tracked shifts in the marble, the pressure in the clay, and the angle of the lean. By 2001, the rescue was complete. The tower's tilt had been brought back to 3.97 degrees. A visible lean, but safe enough to welcome visitors once again. Today, more than 5 million people climb its spiral staircase each year, drawn by the promise of standing inside history's most spectacular mistake. The Leaning Tower remains a monument not just to human stubbornness, but to the idea that sometimes saving a flaw can be more valuable than erasing it. When the Leaning Tower of Pisa reopened in 2001, its tilt had been reduced to 3.97 degrees, still unmistakable, but finally stable. Over 800 years, builders responded to a 10-foot foundation on unstable clay with improvised fixes, political pressure, and persistent denial. Documents show that from the first 5-centimeter lean in 1178, every generation doubled down, even as the risk grew. The 100-year construction pause, forced by war, unintentionally saved the monument by allowing the soil to settle. Yet the exact reasoning behind each decision to continue, especially amid visible danger, remains partly lost in incomplete records. Today, more than 5 million visitors a year travel to see this architectural mistake, now protected as a UNESCO World Heritage Site. The tower's legacy proves that human error, when faced with determination and adaptation, can create icons more lasting than perfection ever could.